Good morning. Today we are continuing to write equations in slope-intercept form. Reminder, that is the form y equals mx plus b, because m is our slope, which you can find by counting rise over run from one point to the next. Count how many you go up and then how many you go over. Or using your slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, meaning you're using your 2 points that you have and plugging those numbers in. And then b is our y-intercept. This piece of information right here is new because we know this is our y-intercept, or b, where we're crossing the y-axis. That's not new. However, looking at just the point is new. So if that was up 1, 2, that point would be 0, 2. So if we were just given a point, for example, 0, 2, we would know that 2 is the y-intercept, or b, because the 0 is first. We're not moving left and right. We're just going up or down, which is really the y-axis, or a y-intercept. So first, we're going to start off by reviewing slope. If you have an equation in the form y equals mx plus b, you can identify the slope right away. So our slope in this equation, in front of x, is -3. Let me erase that so it's easier to see here. M right there is -3. We like to list slope as a fraction, so you can put it as a fraction, put it over 1. Here, our slope, we need to count rise over run, meaning we have to count up and down first, then left to right. So from here to here, we're counting up and down. We're going down. Remember, this is our elevator. Go up and down in your elevator. 1, 2, 3, 4. So down 4, because we went down, it's a negative. And over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's our slope. That's all we're looking for, is a slope. Now we have 2 points. It's been a while since we've done slope like this, but remember, we can label our points x, y in alphabetical order. This is our first point, so they get 1s. X, y, this is our second point, so they get 2s. And our slope poster gives us our equation that we need. It's on the wall, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This equation was also on the very first slide, right here. So I'm going to take these 2 points and plug them in. First, I'm going to look for y2. My second y right here is -2. So I'm going to put that on the top left, -2. Then it says minus y1, which is -4. I know 2 negatives are going to make a positive. And then x2 on the bottom is 1 minus x1, which is a -5. Those 2 negatives again make a positive. Now we can just simplify. -2 plus 4. There are more negatives, or more positives, so 4 minus 2 is 2, positive 2, and then 1 plus 5 is 6. We can simplify. If you can, we can divide both of these by 2. So 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So our slope is 1 over 3, or 1/3. Next, still just finding the slope, but we can't find our slope until you have the letter y all by itself. So we need to solve this for y. So first, I'm going to move this for x. It's a positive, so I need to subtract on both sides. Subtract 4x. We have -3y. And always write the x's first, because x's come first in our equation. -4x plus 9, because it's a positive 9. And then we need to get y by itself, and this is multiplied by -3, so I'm going to divide everything by -3. We get y equals, here we have 2 negatives, those make a positive. It's not a very nice number, so I'm just going to leave it as a fraction. Oops, don't forget your x there. 4/3 x. And then 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. So there's our equation solved for y, but we really just wanted our slope. So our slope in the equation y equals mx plus b, our slope is 4 over 3. This middle one should be a little bit easier because all we have to do is count. Count rise over run, we're rising 1, 2, and running 1, 2, 3. Remember to count the spaces, not the lines. We counted the space between those two. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Last, same as we did up above, using your slope formula, which is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, we need to plug in these numbers. So I'm going to label them xy, that's my first point, xy second point. So first, y2 is negative 2, minus, because there's a negative sign here, y1, which is negative 6. Two negatives there make a positive. And on the bottom, x2 right here is negative 2, minus x1, which is negative 6. Again, two negatives make a positive. So we really have the same thing on the top and the bottom. Different sign, subtract 6 minus 2 is 4. And there's more positive, so it's a positive 4. So we have 4 over 4. 4 divided by 4, or 4 goes into 4, 1 time. So your answer is 1, or as a fraction, 1 over 1. Alright. On the back, I believe, it says write the equation in slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form is this form, y equals mx plus b. So slope is our m, right here, and our y-intercept is b, where we begin on our graph, on the y-axis. So they're just looking for an equation. Y equals m, which is really 8. Then there's the x, right there, plus b, and b is also 8. This 8 went here because it's a y-intercept, and this slope went here. The next one, we're going to write the same equation, but we need to find the slope and the y-intercept first. So I like to start with b, our y-intercept, because it's easy to see on the graph. We begin on the y-axis at down or negative, negative 1, negative 2. And then our slope we just count by doing rise over run. Rising 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And run 1, 2. Now that's 6 over 2. We can simplify that if we divide by 2. That will give us 3 over 1. Or if you'd like, 3 divided by 1 is just 3. Either one will work. So we have y equals, and remember we're writing y equals mx plus b, so m is 3x, plus b, or in this case minus, because it's a negative, minus 2. Our next problem, we need to find our slope by using our slope formula. So I'm going to label our points xy first point, xy second point, and use my slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1 to find my slope. So first y2, which is 13, minus y1, which is 4. Then on the bottom, x2, which is 6, minus x1, which is 0. Well, 13 minus 4, we'll just count backwards, 12, 11, 10, 9. And 6 minus 0, or 6 minus nothing, is still 6. These are both divisible by 3, so I can divide both by 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. What we just figured out was m, which is our slope, 3 over 2. And then we need to find b, our y-intercept. Now our y-intercept is really where we're crossing the y-axis. on our graph wherever we're crossing our y-axis. Just like I said on the very first slide today, our y-intercept, if this was up 3 right here, that would be the point x comma y, or x, we did not go left and right, we went 0 left or right, and we went up 1, 2, 3. If instead it was down here, this point would be 0, and we went down, -1, -2. So in order to find our y-intercept, we need to look for a point that has a 0 first. Whatever the other number is going to be b, our y-intercept, where we're crossing the y-axis. So looking at this point up here, we need to look for a point that has a 0 first. Well, this point right here has a 0 first. It's the point 0, 4, so our y-intercept is just 4. So our equation in the form y equals mx plus b is y equals 3 over 2x, that's our slope, and then plus b, or plus 4. That is the answer we're looking for. Let's try a couple more just like it. First, they're already giving us m, and they're already giving us b, because m is our slope and b is our y-intercept, where we're crossing the y-axis. This one would be at -7. You don't need to draw the graph, I'm just showing you what that means, the y-intercept. So we need to write our equation in the form y equals mx plus b. So we have y equals m, which is 4 over 5x, plus b, or in this case it's not plus because b is negative, it would be -7. Let's try the next one. Our slope is m, and our y-intercept is b. So b is where we begin on the y-axis. Here's our y-axis. This one's beginning right here, which is the point. They even show you 0, b. Right there, 0, b is 5, or you can count up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then our slope is rise over run. From here to here, we're going rising, we're going down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1. So you can write -1 over, or -5 over 1, or just -5. So our equation is y equals m, which is -5x, plus b, which is 5. There's our equation. Now this third one looks a little bit confusing because this isn't really a point. We need to come up with a point x and y, and another point x and y. Now before, back in chapter 4, we learned f of x is a fancy way of saying y. So what this really is saying, you guys, is that f of x, or function form, is really y. We learned f of x equals mx plus b, or really y equals mx plus b. That's the equation we know. These really just mean the same thing. F of x is a fancy way of saying y. So here, they're just trying to trick you. This is f of x is a fancy way of saying y. So in this equation, or this point here, x is just 0, and y is just -1. And over here, same thing. F of x is a fancy way of saying y. So x is 3, and y is -10. Now I can do the same thing I did up here before and find my slope. So I'm going to use my slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, to find it. So I'm going to label these points. This is my first point, and this is my second point, and plug the points in to this equation. So first, y2, which is -10, minus y1, which is -1. Two negatives we know make a positive. And then on the bottom, x2 minus x1, or 3 minus 0. So -10 plus 1, there's more negatives different signs subtract, so 10 minus 1 is 9, negative 9. And then 3 minus 0 is still 3. We can simplify this by dividing by 3, or just negative 9 divided by 3 is negative 3. So that is our slope, m. And then our y-intercept, or b, we need to find by looking for a point 0, b. Where are we crossing the y-axis? This first point right here has a 0 first, so our point that we're looking at is 0, negative 1, so b is just negative 1. So our equation is y equals negative 3x minus 1. Let's take a look at another problem. This one is probably the most easiest, and they're working towards more difficult. Same as we just did, so if you want to try this row on your own and then click play to see if you did it right, I would suggest trying that. We know slope is really m, and y-intercept is really b. So in the form y equals mx plus b, you would have the equation y equals m, which is negative 4x, plus b, which is 5. In this next one, our y-intercept, where we cross the y-axis, is up 1, 2, 3, 4, right there. Or you could look for the point 0, b, which right there it is, 0, 4. And our slope, we're counting rise over run, counting up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over just 1. 5 over 1, or just 5. Because 5 divided by 1 is 5. So our equation would be y equals mx plus b. This is m, this is b. So y equals 5x plus 4. And the third one, which is probably the most challenging, just because the only thing we have to do is actually find our slope. We don't know what our slope is, we have to find it. So I'm going to label my points x, y, this is my first point, x, y, second point, and I'm going to plug those numbers in to my slope formula. Oops, y2 minus y1, let me fix that, over x2 minus x1. So first, y2 is negative 2, minus y1, which is 0, and then x2, which is also 0, minus x1, which is a negative 1. Two negatives there make a positive. Negative 2 minus nothing is still negative 2. 0 plus 1 is 1. So for our slope, we have negative 2 divided by 1, which is really just negative 2 still. And then our y-intercept. We need to look for a point 0, b. That's where we're going to cross our y-axis on a graph. Could be positive, could be negative. Now this one you have to be careful because there was more than one point that has 0. You need to look for the one that has a 0 first. Because x comes first, we did not go left and right, we just went up or down. So this one does not match 0b, this one does match 0b. So b is just negative 2. So our equation should read y equals negative 2x from our slope, and then minus 2. This last one, I would say, is more of a challenge because we've done so many already. If you want to try this on your own again, I would suggest doing that. So first, equation y equals mx plus b. M is right here, it's our slope. B is right there, it's our y-intercept. So our equation will read y equals m, which is negative 5 over 7, x, and then plus b, or in this case minus b if it's minus 4. Next, our y-intercept. On this one, I always like to find that first on a graph because it's easiest to see. Where we cross the y-axis, up here we're up from the origin 1, 2, 3, 4. That point is not labeled, but it's up 1, 2, 3, 4. So our y-intercept is 4. And our slope from this point to this point, they helped you. You're going up 3 and over 3. 3 over 3 is the same as just 1. Because if we went up 1 over 1, it would form the same line. So our equation is y equals 1x plus 4. And the last one, remember, they're not trying to trick you. We know f of x is a fancy way of saying y. Same thing here, f of x and y. So our points, x comes first, x is 2, y is negative 4. And over here, x is 0, y is negative 4. Before I start, I know that my y-intercept is just looking for the point 0, b. So I know right here this is 0, b, so b is negative 4. If that's easiest to find first, go ahead and do that first. Then we'll find our slope using first point and second point. So that's our slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So first y2, which is negative 4, minus y1, which is also negative 4. Two negatives there make a positive. Then on the bottom, x2 minus x1, or 0 minus 2. So negative 4 plus 4 is really just nothing, 0. 0 minus 2 is just negative 2. Well, 0 divided by anything is just 0. This is okay on the slope poster, so it's just 0. So here we could write y equals 0x minus 4. Or, you guys, 0x, it's like there's nothing there, it's just 0. So you could just write y equals negative 4. And that's it. Your homework is very similar to this. And don't forget to add your homework to your notes app if you do not get this done.